episode of Resilience by Faith podcast. I am your host, Reese. If you're new here, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and share this episode once you get to the end and kind of see, hey, I learned something from this episode, or hey, she's kind of on to something, or I like the topic from the day, or maybe go back and listen to other episodes that were previously recorded from other seasons of this podcast and before the name change, and maybe share that one. I don't know. It's whatever you like. But please help me reach other people and please help me spread the word by subscribing. You let the algorithm know on Apple Podcasts that, hey, I like this type of stuff. I like these topics. I like podcasts with these themes, and help them to appear on your For You page. Or, sometimes when you're going to browse, help them help you, okay, by finding other podcasts like mine and also letting my podcast tell Apple that, hey, people are liking me, these types of people are liking me, these type of demographics and whatnot. And you, in turn, you will help new people find this podcast, okay? But let's get into the topic for today. Love thyself, okay? Love thyself. You have to love yourself, okay? And that is the hardest thing that I have ever had to do, because forever and ever I'm basically, how like you use people as pawns, or that you use certain things for certain reasons. It's just to get whatever you need in that moment out of it. I kind of look at that as how I was using myself. I'm just using myself to get from this chapter to the next chapter, from this phase of my life to the next phase. And I literally didn't think to stop and say, hey, pat yourself on the back because you accomplished that. Or, hey, you navigated that, or you handled that situation well. You should celebrate that. You should acknowledge that. You should love yourself for enduring that. You should look at what you've overcome and celebrate that. But instead, I was just like, yeah. Whew, glad that's over. On to the next thing. Now, this thing is what I need to get done next. And I didn't even stop to like celebrate my little wins, to have a deeper relationship with myself. I never, ever in a million years thought about ever having a relationship with myself, because that was like Switzerland to me. Like, unheard of. I never saw anybody else in my family prioritize that or talk about things like that. So why would I want to do that? How did I know something like that exists? And as I have continued to climb that ladder of age, not that I'm super old, but I'm embarking on 30 soon, and I just decided that this was something that I wanted for me. As crazy as it may seem to other people listening, but I want this for myself. So I need to prioritize it. And I have started, of course, it's not a secret. I've been going to therapy and working on myself, but I have also been spending time with myself to cultivate that relationship as you would with anybody else. You would spend time with someone when you want them to know that you care about them. Of course, time is valuable, whether that's a phone call or y'all are going out and spending time together, having conversations. You're being intentional about scheduling time to spend with that person. So why wouldn't you do the same thing for yourself? And that's what I have been doing. I have been taking time out to go to therapy. I've been taking time out to literally be intentional about reflecting on what was talked about in therapy, because you'll be surprised how many times people say they go to therapy, including myself, and then therapy is over and you talked about it and you think to yourself, God, that was a good session and I learned so much, and then never think about it again. Never implement what you guys talked about again. Never take home anything about it. And all of these things that y'all talk about and y'all share between or amongst each other is to improve yourself. But you just take whatever you need in that second and you're just like, oh, okay, that makes me feel better. Oh, okay, that was a good session. And that's it. So I have been trying to be more intentional this year about reflecting on what it is that we talked about in therapy and applying it to my life, whatever type of task that they gave me to do. And in return, it makes me love myself more. Reflecting on my therapy session helps me to reflect on what it is in my past that caused that action or that behavior, or whatever it is that is causing me to have such experience in my life, whatever, such struggle, such happiness, such joy, and actually sit with my feelings and think about that. But in return, that has caused me to love myself more. So I guess that would be my number one. My number two would definitely be to look yourself, and I know it sounds crazy, but look yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and recite an affirmation. Or I don't like to use the word affirmation, I say declaration, because you're declaring something over your life, you're declaring something over yourself. So I like to use the word declaration. Just look yourself in the eye and say, I'm stronger than what I was, and in the future I'll be stronger than that. Or, this is to come to pass, and, or I'm going to conquer this, or I'm going to do that, or I love you. Just simply saying, I love you, looking myself in the eyes in the mirror was the hardest thing I have ever done. And it wasn't even a therapist who gave me that goal. If you remember Kellen Flugiker, he was a guest on the podcast a couple of seasons ago. Or should I say, he was a guest on the podcast last season. It feels like the time is flying by so fast. But he shared his story of how God basically changed his life and had him thinking and doing things differently. And I met with him because he does have a coaching business, and we talked. And he said, look yourself in the mirror for 5 minutes a day and tell yourself that you love yourself. Couldn't do it. Like, literally, the beginning was the hardest thing I ever had to do. I was like, who does this? Like, do people actually do this where they look themselves in the mirror and say, I love you? Like, what is this? Why is this so hard for me to do? And I had to get to the bottom of that. And literally, I didn't love myself. For the longest, I was my biggest critic. And I guess getting to love myself was so hard. It was so hard because for ever and ever in how I grew up, I've heard nothing about how I'm a D is for dummies, or um, you're never good at this, or you can't do this right, or you look a mess, take that off, or like, God, I was never that big, you know? And so that made me be hypercritical of myself because I grew up in an environment where everything around me was hypercritical. So in return, that's how I loved myself, by criticizing myself. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was just say, I love you to myself. I was like, why can't I do this thing? And so everything begins with you. You want to find the love of your life, that begins with you. You want to be successful in this area, that begins with you. Everything begins with yourself. And if I could leave two things with you, it would be those things, the declarations, and definitely just being able to reflect. And my number one, that I gave you, it's hard. It's definitely hard when you're the you're first in your generation to practice that type of self care, self love. But literally, everything that you want to accomplish in life starts with loving yourself. And when you love yourself, from that love comes such an array of abundance and success. And if I could give you anything in life, it would be the gift of loving yourself. So I know that this is a really, really short episode for such a heavy topic, but that's the reason why I wanted it to be short, is because it is such a heavy topic. And if you're going to do reflection, that's where you learn and you take the most out of um, whatever that is for you. So look, think about what I said, look over your life. Has it been hard over your life to love yourself, to give yourself props, to be gentle with yourself, to say kind things to yourself? Or are you like me, where nothing positive for most of your life has ever been said to you. And it's just, it is really tough. It is hard. But the moment that you love yourself unapologetically, the moment you'll stop accepting mediocre stuff in your life, and your life will just, you'll take it to that next level and you'll continue to elevate. So definitely pour into yourself. Don't forget about your own cup. Love yourself. I wish that this episode was going out sooner in the year, because I know maybe closer to the new year to kind of set the tone for the year, but it is what it is. Thank you guys for listening to another episode. Again, share if this episode helped you think about anything or another perspective in your life. And also subscribe, guys. Join the Facebook group so you can tell me what you thought about this episode. And I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.